Good morning. Welcome to Keep This in Mind, brought to you by SpectHealth.com. I am David A. Specht Jr., and I have a question for you today, and it'll kind of play into some of the things that I believe, but do you trust your eyes? It's a kind of a interesting question. Do you trust your eyes? Do you trust what you see as real? The reason I ask this question is because so many times we believe a version of things based upon what we see, what we hear, and our senses are good. They are an amazing tool. But can I tell you that our senses will not always get the entire picture? Back in 2015, I believe it was, when 2005, Hurricane Katrina rocked the southeastern United States and flooded, due to several factors, a lot of New Orleans. I was president of the Louisiana Press Association at the time, and about 3 months after, when things started settling down, we went and took a tour of the lower Ninth Ward, one of the most impacted parts of New Orleans. Up until that point, my views of the flooding and the damage were limited to what I could see in the news media at the time. Photos in newspapers, video from cameras on television. But when I actually put boots on the ground and walked the streets of the lower Ninth Ward and looked around in a 360-degree view, and I saw the extensive damage, I realized that my perception of the impact of Katrina was far too low. My eyes, although they had been guided by the other eyes of reporters, photographers, my eyes had deceived me up until that point. I had created a vision in my head about what I thought hurricane damage looked like, and it wasn't anywhere close to the reality. The lesson I took from that, and that's what I want to share with you today, is when we apply our perceptions to our interactions with people, we are doing them and us a disservice. When we start to see people in that little bitty window of our interaction today, whether it's good or bad, and we assign that to the totality of their life or the totality of their worth, or our worth, our own perceptions, we are operating with faulty information. Well, David, that's not true. You can pretty much figure out somebody, size them up when you meet them. Really? Let me tell you the story of two Davids. Up until 2022, David, me, was a resident of Louisiana. I was known as somebody who owned the newspaper. I was known as somebody who was involved in the community semi-politically. And people put me in that box. I was 4 years ahead of that, I was 320 pounds. So I was a big guy involved in the community who owned the newspaper. So I got put in that box. Fast forward to 2022. You see the me that you see now. I'm a resident of Tennessee. Now my primary focus is helping people in their health and in their mindset. Yes, I still own the newspapers, but the truth of the matter is if you meet me in Tennessee, you're going to formulate an opinion or a perception about me based upon what you're meeting now. And if I go back to Louisiana, people engage with me based upon their perceptions of me during my time in Louisiana, because that's what we're dealing with. That is human nature. And what I want us to come away with today is that we don't see the whole picture. I consider myself a very perceptive individual. I can pretty much see somebody, I can ask the right questions and start to get a little bit of insight, but nobody ever gives you the full picture. Why? Well, number one, they may be embarrassed about things in their past. Number two, they may not want to brag about the successes they've had because, again, we assign based upon perceptions. So my lesson for you today is, how are you going through this life? In the very small window of your perception when interacting with other human beings, or even interacting with the quote-unquote facts of the day, are you really opening yourself up and opening your mind up to what's possible? That the person is acting the way they are, or you act the way you are because of what has led you up to this point in your life, in their life? Now, that's not an excuse. We don't have a opt out because, well, that's just the way I was brought up, or that's just the way that I am. That's not, you don't get that. Sorry, deal with it. But that's why I say in the third thing that I believe if you get traction in one area of life, you want to take on other areas. Because until you know you can win, you are going to default to, well, that's just the way I've always been, or that's just the way it's always been. So as you're looking at yourself, as you're looking at others, and as you're looking at situations, I want you to ask yourself this question. Is what I'm seeing the whole picture? Or am I perceiving it based upon my worldview, based upon my experiences, and based upon the things that cloud my judgment? You see, even if you have a long time of knowing somebody, you may assign things in their past to their present, and that's not fair. You may assign things in their past and their present to their future, and that's not fair either. So let me encourage you today. I'm not saying don't be perceptive. I'm not saying don't judge. You know what? It's in us. We do it. All I'm asking you to do is take more than just one step in that process. Begin to see people as those that are on a journey just like you are. And some of that journey was great. Some of that journey was a challenge. Some good decisions were made. Some terrible decisions were made. But right now in the present, there is an opportunity to actually engage and improve the life of another human being, even if that human being's yourself. Remember, I believe three things. Number one, I believe that health matters more today than any time in our history. And can I tell you, health is not just your body, it's your mind. In fact, your mind probably needs the most health because it leads to all the others. Number two, I believe nutrition is one area of life where we can gain control. It's not easy, but it can be simply done. And now back to number three, and this is why today's live is so important. I believe when you get traction in one area of life, you want to take on other areas. When you find out that you can actually transform your life through health, all of a sudden you're like, okay, if there's hope for me, there's hope for others. What can I do to serve them? What you're seeing today is only a very small window into the life of somebody. I have a whole room around me. Remember that when you're engaging and getting into relationship with people, when you're dealing with customers, when you're dealing with clients, when you're dealing with friends and family, you're only seeing a very small window. When you realize that, you will take a little bit more time before casting judgment or blame or just bad vibes. Remember, perception is just a window, but it's our job to look all the way around and see what the whole picture brings to the equation. I think you'll be surprised, pleasantly even. God bless.